Ever feel like some laws are just, rigged, benefit certain people? Oh, well, that's kind of what we're digging into today.
Right.
This deep dive is all about the law, a book by a French thinker, Frédéric Bastiat, from way back in the 1850s. And you'd be surprised how relevant it still is today.
It's true. Bastiat's work really gets to the core of, what law should be, a protector of individual rights, not some tool to be manipulated. He even served in the French National Assembly. So his ideas came from real political experience, not just theory.
We've got excerpts from the book and a really thorough summary to work with today so we can get the full picture.
And one thing that Bastiat tackles is this idea of legal plunder. It's a catchy term for something that's unfortunately pretty common.
Legal plunder? I haven't heard that before.
So it's when the law is twisted to take from some and give to others, often under this guise of the common good. Think about taxes that fund programs that, only certain groups benefit from, or regulations that stifle competition to favor a few businesses. That's legal plunder in action.
So he's saying that even laws could be used for shady stuff. What did he think the real purpose of law should be then?
For Bastiat, the core purpose of law is to safeguard life, liberty, and property. These are like the bedrock of a free society. And he saw any deviation from that as a dangerous path.
So the law should be a shield, not a weapon. I like that.
Precisely. He believed that when laws are distorted to serve specific interests, well, it creates a system that's just rife with injustice and oppression. And we see echoes of this in modern debates around issues like economic inequality and the role of government in wealth redistribution.
It makes you think, are there laws even today that could be considered a form of this legal plunder?
Well, that's where things get interesting. Bastiat gives a bunch of examples from his time in 19th century France. He talks about taxes being used to prop up certain industries and the creation of monopolies that only benefited a select few. And some of those practices haven't disappeared entirely, have they?
Wow. So some things never change, huh? But how does this idea of legal plunder connect to what we see happening today?
It's all about recognizing when the law is being used to unfairly advantage some over others, even if it's, cloaked in good intentions.
Okay.
It's a call for us to be critical thinkers, to scrutinize policies and question whether they truly serve the common good, or just a select few.
So how does Bastiat suggest we avoid falling into this trap of legal plunder? Does he offer any solutions?
Bastiat firmly believed in individual rights, particularly the right to property. He saw property as foundational to personal liberty and argued that it's not a privilege granted by the state, but a natural right.
So if the government could just take your property whenever they feel like it, what freedom do you really have?
Exactly, and this is where his views on the role of government come into play.
What did Bastiat think the government's role should be if it's not meddling in all these things?
He advocated for a minimalist government, focused primarily on protecting citizens from force, fraud, and theft. Basically, creating a fair and level playing field where individuals are free to pursue their goals without unnecessary interference.
So he's saying the government shouldn't be in the business of picking winners and losers in the economy.
You got it. He was skeptical of government intervention in areas like charity, education, and commerce, believing that these were realms where individuals and communities should take the lead, not the state.
Yeah, sounds like he was really putting the emphasis on individual responsibility and limited government.
Absolutely. And that leads us to a question that is at the heart of Bastiat's work and still resonates today. What do you believe is the proper role of government? Where do you draw the line between individual responsibility and the need for state intervention?
It's a complex question with no easy answers. But Bastiat's ideas certainly provide a thought-provoking framework for examining the relationship between the individual and the state, and the role of law in creating a just and prosperous society.
His ideas are far from universally accepted, of course. Some might argue that his views are too idealistic, that they fail to account for the realities of poverty and inequality. Others might see a need for more government involvement to address social issues.
That's a valid point. It's a debate that continues to rage on, even today. And there are strong arguments to be made on both sides.
What's important is that we engage with these ideas thoughtfully and critically, even if we disagree. Bastiat's work challenges us to think deeply about the consequences of government actions, and to be wary of laws that may seem well-intentioned, but ultimately lead to unintended harm.
It's a reminder that even in a democracy, we need to be vigilant about ensuring that the law protects individual rights rather than becoming a tool for plunder, no matter how noble the stated goals may be.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that Bastiat isn't just an abstract voice from the past. His work has had a tangible impact, particularly on those who advocate for limited government and individual liberty.
It's remarkable how a book written over 150 years ago can still speak to us so directly, prompting us to question the way we think about the law and the power we grant to our governments.
His ideas have fueled countless debates, shaped political movements, and continue to be studied and debated by scholars and policymakers today.
I'm starting to see how Bastiat's ideas about legal plunder could be applied to so many situations, even today, Like, it's making me think.
He was really concerned with how seemingly well-intentioned laws could backfire, especially when they interfered with individual rights.
Right. Can you give me an example of what Bastiat might consider legal plunder in a modern context?
Okay. Let's take subsidies. Say the government decides to subsidize a particular industry to create jobs. On the surface, this sounds like a good thing, right?
Sure. Helping businesses grow and create jobs seems positive.
Well, Bastiat would argue that by propping up one industry with taxpayer money, you're essentially picking winners and losers in the marketplace.
Okay.
And this can lead to inefficiencies, because the subsidized industry may not be the most productive or innovative. Plus, it's unfair to other businesses who have to compete on an uneven playing field.
So even though the goal might be to boost the economy and create jobs, Bastiat would say that using taxpayer money to favor one industry over others is a form of legal plunder.
That's exactly how he'd see it. He believed that the best way to create a thriving economy is to let the free market work its magic, without government interference.
It sounds like he was a big believer in the power of the free market to, regulate itself and create prosperity.
He was, and he used the analogy of the invisible hand to explain this concept.
Hey there, listeners. If you're finding value in our deep dives and want to dig even deeper, consider grabbing a copy through the Amazon link in the description below. And if you're an audiobook fan, you can dive in with a free 2-month Audible trial on us. Our gift to you. It's a great way to support the channel, explore amazing works on the go, and immerse yourself in these thought-provoking ideas. So, check out those links in the description, and thank you for supporting our work. And we'll keep the deep dives coming.
Can you explain what the invisible hand is?
Sure. It's this idea that when individuals are free to pursue their own self-interest in a market economy, it unintentionally leads to benefits for society as a whole. It's as if an invisible hand is guiding the market towards an efficient allocation of resources.
So even though people are acting out of self-interest, the competition and innovation that arises in a free market ultimately lead to better products, lower prices, and more opportunities for everyone.
Precisely. Bastiat believed that this invisible hand is far more effective at creating prosperity than any government planner or regulator could ever be.
Bastiat's focus on individual liberty and limited government was really interesting. He even touched on something he called the tyranny of the majority.
Right.
What did you mean by that?
He was pointing to the danger that even in a democracy, the majority can impose its will on the minority in a way that infringes on individual rights. This could be through laws that discriminate against certain groups or policies that benefit the majority at the expense of the minority.
So it's not just about dictatorships. Even in a system where we vote, there's still a risk that the rights of some individuals could be trampled on.
Absolutely. And for Bastiat, this was a major concern. He believed that the law should be a shield to protect the rights of all individuals, not just the majority.
And how does this tie back into his idea of legal plunder?
Well, he saw legal plunder as a mechanism by which the majority, or those in power, could use the law to extract resources from the minority, or those who lack political influence.
That's a pretty sobering thought.
It is. It's a reminder that we need to be constantly vigilant about protecting individual rights, even in a democracy. We need to be wary of any laws that grant special privileges to certain groups, or that allow the government to arbitrarily seize property or wealth.
He seemed to favor individual initiative and personal responsibility over government intervention.
That's a fair assessment. He believed that individuals, left to their own devices, are capable of achieving great things, and that excessive government intervention often stifles creativity, innovation, and economic growth.
But didn't he think there were any situations where government action was necessary?
Of course. Bastiat acknowledged that the government has a legitimate role to play in protecting citizens from force, fraud, and theft. He saw this as the core function of a just government. He was all for enforcing contracts, upholding property rights, and ensuring a fair and impartial justice system.
So it's not like he was against all government, just against government overstepping its bounds.
Exactly. He believed that the government should focus on its core responsibilities, maintaining order, protecting individual rights, and enforcing the rule of law, and leave the rest to individuals and voluntary associations.
That's a pretty different view of government than what we often hear today.
It is. But it's a perspective worth considering. It forces us to think critically about the proper role of government in our lives, and to be wary of policies that might infringe on individual liberties or distort the free market.
So in reading Bastiat, are we just supposed to take his ideas at face value? Or is there room for a more nuanced perspective?
That's a great question. While Bastiat provides a valuable framework for understanding the dangers of legal plunder and the importance of individual liberty, his work can be interpreted and applied in a variety of ways.
I'm thinking about some of the criticisms we mentioned earlier. Didn't some people argue that his views were too idealistic and didn't fully address issues like poverty and inequality?
Yes, critics often point out that a purely laissez-faire approach where the government takes a completely hands-off approach might not be sufficient to address these complex social problems. They argue that there's a role for the government to play in providing a safety net for the most vulnerable, regulating markets to prevent abuses, and promoting equality of opportunity. The key takeaway from Bastiat's work is not to blindly reject all forms of government intervention, but to be critical thinkers, to scrutinize policies carefully, and to be wary of unintended consequences.
His work reminds us to be skeptical of any attempts to use the law to benefit one group at the expense of another, even if it's done in the name of the common good.
It's a call for vigilance, for active citizenship, and for a constant defense of individual liberty against any encroachment, whether from the state or from powerful private interests. Bastiat's insights into the nature of law, the dangers of legal plunder, and the importance of individual liberty are as relevant today as they were in his time. They provide a timeless framework for navigating the complex relationship between the individual and the state, and for building a just and prosperous society.
This deep dive into the law has really been eye-opening. I'm starting to see the world in a whole new light.
It's been fascinating unpacking Bastiat's The Law with you. It's a short book, incredibly dense with ideas.
I never really thought about law from this, individual rights perspective before.
I think that's the power of Bastiat, He just forces you to look at things from a different perspective. It's like he's holding up a mirror to society and asking, are you sure you're living up to your own ideals?
And it's not even just about big government versus small government, is it? It's about what kind of society do we want to live in? One where the law is used fairly, or one where it's used for personal gain?
Exactly. And it really makes you think about the responsibility we each have as citizens. To be informed, to engage in debate, and to challenge injustice wherever we see it.
He wasn't just some, ivory tower academic either. Bastiat was out there trying to make a difference.
Yeah, he was a tireless advocate for free trade, fiercely opposing protectionist policies that he saw as benefiting special interests at the expense of consumers. He spoke out against government monopolies, arguing that they stifled innovation and limited choices for individuals. His writings and speeches were deeply rooted in the real-world struggles of his time.
And it seems like his ideas really struck a chord, even back then.
His impact has been profound, especially on the development of classical, liberal, and libertarian thought. But his ideas have also sparked debate across the political spectrum, prompting people from all walks of life to reconsider the role of government and the nature of individual liberty.
Yeah, I can see how his work would be appealing to anyone who values individual freedom and responsibility.
His call for limited government, his emphasis on individual rights, and his warnings against the dangers of legal plunder continue to resonate with many today. His ideas have influenced economists, legal scholars, political activists, and countless others who are committed to building a freer and more just society.
It's amazing how some ideas can just transcend time, like Bastiat was writing in the 1800s, but it feels so current.
It's a testament to the enduring power of his ideas. They address fundamental questions about, the relationship between the individual and the state, the nature of freedom, and the role of law in society. These are questions that will always be relevant as long as human beings are striving for a better world.
I think one of those important lessons I've taken away from this deep dive is that we shouldn't just blindly accept things as they are. We need to question, scrutinize, and hold our leaders accountable.
That's the spirit of Bastiat. He was a champion of critical thinking, encouraging individuals to examine ideas for themselves and to never take anything at face value. He believed that true progress depends on a society of informed and engaged citizens who are willing to challenge the status quo.
And that's something we can all do, no matter what our background is.
Exactly. We can all strive to be more informed about the laws that govern us, to be more aware of the potential for legal plunder, and to be more vocal in defending individual liberty.
It's a call to action, really, for all of us.
So, if you're intrigued by what you've heard today and you want to delve deeper into these ideas, I highly recommend checking out Bastiat's The Law for yourself. It's a surprisingly easy read, even for those who aren't familiar with economic or political theory, and you'll find a link to purchase the book in the description below. It's a book that has the potential to change the way you view the world and inspire you to become a more active and engaged citizen. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into fascinating topics that matter.